I want to welcome you to the breakout session for Mobile IT Summit. This is the session for Alistair Farquharson, CTO of SOA Software. Alistair, welcome back.
Always a pleasure to be here.
At SOA Software, Alistair spearheads product design and development of SOA Software's SOA and API portfolios, including the just-released Mobile Applications Gateway. He is an expert in distributed environments and software lifecycles with a focus on governance and management. And in this session, he brings all that expertise together in mobile apps accelerating mobile development. Here, Alistair will explore just how the innovations made possible by APIs are helping customers create a new and efficient mobile application development lifecycle, which in turn leads to easier testing, quicker deployments for both enterprise BYOD apps as well as B2C and partner mobility projects. We'll also, as a bonus, get a tour of SOA Software's just-released Mobile Applications Gateway. Just a quick reminder before I hand it to Alistair, if you haven't already done so, please download his slides by clicking the link just under the viewing area. You'll see we have other terrific downloads there available for you right now as well. And we like to make this interactive where we can. So if you have a question or a comment for Alistair, simply type into the submit a question box and we'll make sure that he gets it. And now, Alistair, tell us about mobile apps accelerating mobile development.
Thanks so much, Vance. As you said, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the confluence of mobile apps and APIs, but I'm going to talk more specifically on how to build an API to support mobile app development. When we look at what our customers are doing today to support their mobile apps, the real bottleneck in many cases is the actual development of the API itself that supports that mobile app. And it might be more than one API, or it might be the APIs of partners that need to be brought into the fold. But in general, it's about the API development and how to actually build that API correctly, how to build it quickly, and how to leverage exactly what you have behind the firewall within the enterprise and get that API out as quickly as possible. It's about supporting mobile app development, but it's more specifically about building those APIs that support those mobile apps. So when you look at an API, you can almost look at the API as a cornerstone of your business. It is a new digital channel for your business. When I talk to business people today, I don't talk about APIs and app development. I talk about their digital strategy and their go-to-market strategy and how to best leverage the digital assets that they have in creating new channels for their business. When they ask how it's done, I start talking about APIs. But in general, if you look at this diagram I have here, you have your company on the left-hand side, and you have all of these new devices, new channels, new avenues for your business. There's tablets, web applications, gaming consoles, mobile devices, smartphones, the whole Internet of Things that you as a business might be trying to reach out into and expand your business through. And the API is really the cornerstone of the interaction with all of these channels. And again, it's not so much about the technology necessarily, but it's about how do you actually create a digital strategy, a go-to-market strategy around your API. Today I'm going to talk about how do you actually build that API quickly, and how do you build that API safely, and how best to leverage the capabilities and assets that you have. So with that in mind, let's just go through a quick overview. So essentially you have a set of systems on the back end within your organization, and you need to expose APIs quickly and securely. So let's look at a set of capabilities that I'm going to describe through the course of my presentation. The first one is mediation. And this is how do you take and leverage what you have and expose that as an API. Secondarily is orchestration. So how can you simplify the development of these APIs? Thirdly, I'm going to talk a little bit about integration and how to provide the best flexibility and agility within the infrastructure and the API development process. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about enhancing the user experience, how to get things to be quick, and how to get things to perform appropriately on a mobile device. Then I'm going to talk a bit about security and quality of service and how you can best lower the risk and speed up the development of your mobile apps. And then last but not least, how Lifecycle plays both with respect to API development as well as with respect to mobile app development. So let's look first at mediation. The whole goal of mediation is to really lower the cost of API development and improve your time to market. You essentially want to leverage what you already have. And most organizations that we speak to even within the mobile group within organizations, they have a set of back-end services that they want to expose as a set of APIs. But there's a mismatch in terms of the stateful model implicit in a REST API and the protocols and message standards that you use implied by the REST API and what you might have internally to your organization. So we see a number of different mediation types that are commonly leveraged within an organization. The first one is message mediation. A classic is that you want to mediate between existing SOAP services and a RESTful API representation. The second one is around security mediations. How do you mediate between SAML that might be used internally and OAuth that might be used externally? Thirdly is around transport mediation. So you might have JMS or MQ or NetTCP internally, and you want to expose those APIs using HTTP externally. So there's a whole set of mediations that need to be built into the platform or the architecture or the development processes that you put in place. People are going to be doing these things in order to expose APIs. Unless, of course, it's a completely greenfield application, which I don't believe exists today. The next point is around orchestration. So how can I simplify the development? How can I make it as declarative, as process-driven, as drag and drop, as UI-based as possible? How can I create APIs and services from my backend systems without writing any code, or at least without writing a lot of code? When we talk to people about exposing APIs, again, we're talking to business people about creating a new digital channel. These people, they need to build APIs quickly. They don't necessarily want to fire up a large development team to actually stitch together or create an API by writing custom code. They have a set of business assets. They have a set of back-end services. They have a set of back-end data sources. They have a set of partners. And they, in many cases, want to orchestrate these existing services and capabilities together to expose APIs. So it's all around speed to market and simplifying that development process using orchestration. The one nice side benefit of orchestration as well is that you get a lot of reuse from creating sub-processes within orchestrations that embody and embed and surround common capabilities that you might have and find within your organization. Orchestration gives the ability to build on top of work that you've already done in a way that's easy for people to understand. Far, far easier and far, far easier to reuse potentially than code in the strictest sense. So orchestration is a very, very valuable tool for businesses essentially to simplify the development of APIs. So I've spoken a little bit about mediation, which is basically the transformation of different messages, security tokens, and transports. I've spoken a bit about orchestration, which helps you actually create business logic around stitching together backend services and data sources and partner APIs to create new APIs. The third part of the puzzle, I think, is around integration. So how can you customize things? How can you build things that don't come out of the box? And how do you give yourself the most flexibility and agility in the environment that you're using to expose APIs? So when you look at a set of tools or capabilities, think about how you're going to actually provide the customizability within that framework. How you're going to support scripting, and how you're going to do transformation and enrichment of APIs. How are you going to do rapid prototyping and sandbox development? Imagine if you could decouple, for instance, your app development from your API development by simply creating a set of API stubs within an integration framework that your app developers could then go and use to build their application, and in parallel to that, you can then go and stitch together and build your backend APIs to support that mobile app. So it allows you to do rapid prototyping and allows you to facilitate sandbox development and allows you to also transform and enrich the APIs that you're exposing to the outside world. So integration, orchestration, and mediation, I think, are three key capabilities that speed up and create the most flexible development environment for the APIs that are supporting your mobile apps. So let's look a little bit at user experience and the kinds of capabilities that you need to improve that user experience. If you think about mobile apps today, they're generally globally distributed. And one of the things that I've found is that traditional CDN and acceleration services can't really adequately provide edge security and edge caching for REST APIs. it tends to be at the wrong level of granularity. These traditional CDN services are all about how do you actually accelerate and cache websites. And REST APIs don't necessarily fall into that same bucket as traditional websites. There's some peculiarities around it. There's additional security mechanisms that you need to be cognizant of. There's finer-grained caching that you need to be careful with when looking at traditional CDNs. So you need to improve the performance, and you need to find a way to provide caching that is close to your application as possible. You also might have potentially back-end services that emit very, very large document sizes or very, very complex documents. So you need to figure out a way of how can you actually break those up for your mobile application. You want to potentially orchestrate or filter or transform back-end service calls into something that's simple and easy for your mobile application to use. But secondarily, you might also want to facilitate paging across large collections within these back-end messages. So if I hit a mainframe and I ask it for a list of customers, I might get 1,000 records back, and a mobile device can only handle 10 of them. So you want to facilitate some kind of paging in the middleware, in that platform that you're using to provide the APIs, and create a paging mechanism across that API that maintains the state and the current page that you're on and feeds that mobile device in a sensible way. So when you look at improving the user experience for mobile devices, you're looking at how you're going to cache, how you're going to provide edge security, and how you're going to provide paging of messages for those mobile applications. And these should dramatically speed up the user experience and the performance of the applications on that mobile device. So the next key component or capability that I see that is specific to or relevant to mobile app development is around security and quality of service. More generally, though, what you're trying to do here is you're trying to separate out non-functional requirements from functional requirements. And what I mean by that is when somebody is building a mobile backend, you don't want to belabor them with the development of security, entitlements, quota management, caching. You don't want to force a backend developer to build out non-functional requirements that should be reused across multiple APIs or provided by a platform for API management. The whole goal here is that you want these developers to focus on functional requirements. You want to lower the risk by applying non-functional requirements out of band of the regular development process. And you also want to speed up the development of your functional requirements by eliminating the need to build out your non-functional requirements. It's quite simple. You just want your developers to focus on things that bring business value. You don't want them to focus on things that are commoditized, essentially, that are non-functional in nature. Last but not least, you need to take a look at lifecycle management. You want to make sure that people are building the right APIs to support your various digital channels. And you also want to make sure that they're building them the right way. You want to control and manage the development lifecycle of APIs. And you want to control and manage the packaging and publication of apps. I've spoken about this in other webinars, and you can go and look through them in detail to see what exactly I mean by API development lifecycle and app packaging and publication lifecycle. But these things are very much cornerstones of how do you actually build the right things, and then secondarily, how you build them the right way. When you look at API development lifecycle, the whole goal here is to prevent failure. Prevent building a disastrous API that nobody ever uses. The goal here is to understand what are the dependencies within the system, automating the workflow and the approvals of APIs, managing the collection of licenses or the actual definition of the go-to-market strategy for APIs. When people think about APIs, you can hand it over to a group of developers and they might build you the most fantastic API. But what they're not going to do, what they're not going to spend time on necessarily, is the go-to-market strategy. How is that API going to be partitioned up, bundled, packaged? How is it going to be promoted? What are the legal agreements associated with it? How is it going to be licensed? How is it going to be monetized? And these are things that need to be thought of through the development lifecycle. Furthermore, you can actually enable your developers and give them templates and interoperability requirements and publication guidelines to get your APIs out there into the public and supporting your mobile apps. And this is all about not only preventing failure, but also creating a factory for the development of mobile backends and APIs in general. You want to streamline the process for building APIs and make sure that you have business support and you have the correct focus around the APIs that you're building today. So lifecycle management is really vital to, in general, speeding up mobile app delivery indirectly by building the right APIs in the first place and creating a complete and coherent digital strategy around those APIs. Secondarily, when you look at mobile app development, you're looking at things like how do you do approvals and certifications for mobile apps? Once somebody has actually built a mobile app, who's going to sign off on it? If you have partners building mobile apps, who's going to certify those? If you have the general public building mobile apps, who's going to certify those? So the whole process of approvals and certifications around the mobile app development lifecycle itself. How do people build things? How do they package them? How do they document them? And last but not least, how are those apps then published, either into an internal enterprise app store or into a public app store? So there's a lot of work and there's a lot of thought that needs to go into how do I do app packaging and publication, and how do I do API development and the life cycle around that. So these are general capabilities that I've been speaking about, but we have a product in the space, our mobile application gateway, that actually meets the needs of the app developer and the business owner that is trying to formulate a digital strategy around APIs and app development. And the kinds of capabilities that we provide are mediation, scripting and integration capabilities, mobile app experience improvements, orchestration, security, and lifecycle management. So just to summarize, the mediation capabilities is how best do I actually leverage the existing capabilities that I have. How do I take back-end services and expose them as REST services? And our platform, our mobile application gateway, can provide those mediations out of the box in a turnkey manner. Scripting and integration. How can I actually customize? How can I remain agile as a business to new demands that are being generated by the market? The mobile application gateway provides a whole scripting framework for you to actually write and embed back-end logic that allows you to rapidly prototype new APIs and create sandbox endpoints or sandbox APIs that your developers can use. The mobile app experience in general is enhanced by the caching and paging and edge security capabilities that we have. Orchestration. We provide a drag and drop visual composer for APIs, and you can take existing backend services, piece them together, data sources, execute scripts, and expose an API as quickly and as efficiently as possible. You might be faced with the problem where you are a business unit or you're trying to support a mobile application, but you don't actually own or manage or control the backend systems that are providing your data. So you're stuck in the middle where you need to be able to take backend services, leverage some orchestration, some scripting, some mediation capabilities, and expose APIs. You don't own the backend systems that are exposing the backend services and data itself. So you need a capability, a platform that will provide you with the orchestration and the scripting and the mediation capabilities within your line of business to support your mobile apps. And this gives you then the flexibility to pick and choose, to mediate, to transform, to piece together, to bring in partners, and to make business decisions or make the best decisions for the business to support the mobile application. The fourth thing that we provide, or the fifth thing that we provide, is all of the non-functional requirements. So security, caching, monitoring, provisioning, entitlements, etc., that allows you to then go and develop and build APIs and mobile backends as quickly as possible without all of the non-functional requirements interfering with and sucking all your development resources away from your core development. The last capability provided by the mobile application gateway is Lifecycle. So this is all about how do you manage the development of APIs and how do you manage the packaging of apps and the publication of apps into an enterprise or public app store. So the lifecycle components kind of piece it together and make sure that you have an efficient factory for the development of mobile apps and the development of the APIs that support them. We make this mobile application gateway, the solution, available both in the cloud as well as on-premise. So you can get started really, really quickly by leveraging this capability in the cloud. You can expose back-end services and capabilities, and we can orchestrate, mediate, integrate, execute scripts, provide you with workflow capabilities, provide you with all of those non-functional requirements as a service. And you can be up and running in a matter of hours with a new API that's exposing some back-end capabilities and supporting potentially a whole new digital strategy or digital channel or mobile application that you have been dreaming of for months. Secondarily, we also offer these capabilities on-premise. For a customer that feels that they really need to have these capabilities on-premise, we can provide turnkey products that you can install within your environment and leverage our capabilities, as I mentioned before. This is really, really useful for companies that might have privacy or just in general concerns about leveraging a platform as a service. Our platform as a service is very, very mature. It's PCI compliant. It's operationally scalable and mature, and the operational processes around it, because of our PCI compliance, really elevated above many other competitors in the space. The third option is a hybrid model, where you may want to leverage our gateway capabilities that I've been discussing on-premise, but leverage our community manager, which is your developer portal, in the cloud. So just to summarize, our mobile application gateway will help your organization lower cost and improve your time to market. It will simplify your development through orchestration. It will provide you flexibility and agility through scripting and the integration capabilities that we have. It will help you improve the user experience through caching and paging and edge security, as well as our global network of data centers. It will lower the risk and speed up development and prevent failure of your mobile applications or the APIs that support your mobile applications. So thank you very much. My name is Alistair Farquharson. I'm the CTO of SOA Software. You can reach me there and you can talk to my company there. And we also have web pages and white papers and blogs that discuss the mobile application gateway solution. Thank you very much, and back to you, Vance.
Alistair, thank you for a terrifically clean and crisp look at how APIs can help with mobile projects, not just for uniting the UI with some back-end services at the design level, but throughout the entire operation lifecycle. Really terrific session.
Thank you.
So, Alistair, as you might expect, because of our audience, we've got some questions in here that touch on the business side as well as the IT architectural side. So, with your permission, let's go right to questions.
No problem.
I think a good place to start is to just level set this conversation you're having with why using APIs is a good way to scale not just my mobile apps, but my mobile skill team. And let me share this one with you. The way you describe APIs for mobile sounds a lot like how we talked about exposing SOA services for easy access and reuse years ago. Can you please describe the differences that you see between what you call mobile APIs and simple SOA?
Yeah, no problem. To summarize, I think that the API is more of a digital go-to-market strategy. And what I mean by that is the API is a product that an organization puts together when they go to market. And it's something that is far more arm's length than a SOA service ever was. And what I mean by that is people build an API, they productize it, they market it, they publish it as a new digital strategy, as a new digital channel, and then people come and use it. For SOA, SOA is all about application-to-application development, and to some extent B2B, but I think that the most fundamental difference is one of mindset. I think that philosophically what we're trying to do here is move the center of gravity. What happened typically with SOA, or even XML-based services, XML RPC, et cetera, EDI, is that the integration was done by IT, and it was something that was very, very technical. And the burden of that integration was really high. In other words, the cost of maintaining that integration was really, really high. And the reason for that is that no one service would ever do. People would build services specific for a particular partner or specific to a particular channel. And with APIs, that's sort of fundamentally shifted. Because the API is itself a product, we've shifted the center of gravity, and we're forcing partners to now write their application based on our API. And culturally, they've gotten used to that. Because of the Facebooks and the Yahoos and whatnot out there that have published APIs, developers have gotten used to consuming those APIs at face value. So the sense of gravity has shifted, and the cost of maintaining that API is much, much lower than the cost of maintaining traditional integration mechanisms. So I think it's all about a change of mental attitude. It's a shift of that sense of gravity, and it's the creation of a product or digital channel that the business is promoting as an asset. And I think that that's fundamentally the difference between traditional service and a new API. I don't think it's technology. I think an API can be SOAP. I really honestly believe that. Today we have JSON and REST potentially. WebSockets is gaining in popularity. Tomorrow, who knows what we're going to have. It's got nothing to do with the protocol and the technology. It all has to do with the positioning in the business and the positioning of an API as a digital channel.
You know, you mentioned REST and JSON and other technologies that people commonly associate with mobility. And there's a question here that actually goes to that issue. So let's drill into that just for a minute, Alistair. The question here says, we use REST and JSON for many mobile app projects. Are there differences in the APIs you're referring to from these that we use? And if so, how do the APIs differ?
Without looking specifically at the API, there's probably no difference. There's a difference to building an API to supporting an app and building an API as a product to support a channel. And I think that there's a difference between those two things. Your API may be too complex, may be not necessarily well documented, may not be marketed. And I think that those are the things that might be different between your API, which is possibly built to meet a technical need, and an API that is built as a product, as a digital channel. So I think that it's just the origin of the API. It might be technically exactly the same. I think it's all about how much business involvement and how much channel development has gone into not necessarily the technical definition of that API, but everything around it. What's the go-to-market strategy? How's it being licensed? How's it being monetized? Are you deriving business analytics out of that API interaction? Those are the things that you might be missing with a tactical kind of API to support one or more mobile applications.
So, Alistair, very good discussion. Let's go to SOA Software's expertise in the technology as well as the best practices side of things. The question here says, does SOA Software provide templates or guides to help me define and publish mobile-ready APIs?
Absolutely. It goes even further than that. We provide the platform. We provide templates and guidelines for both documentation and legal agreements and the actual design of the API itself. The platform provides the integration and orchestration capabilities and mediation capabilities that I described, as well as the developer portal for actually marketing that particular API. So our products run the gambit from policies that manage security and OAuth and monitoring and auditing and reporting, to the actual templates for the API development, the documentation writing, the legal agreements, etc., and the underlying platform that does the orchestration and integration as well. So we definitely provide a sort of a soup to nuts approach in a turnkey manner for our customers, both in the cloud and on-premise.
Excellent, excellent. And I know that the mobile gateway has just been recently launched by SOA Software. Give us a little insight, Alistair, as to the features of the mobile application gateway.
Sure. So the mobile application gateway is a solution, and what we've really done is focused on the features that are important to mobile. So the integration, the orchestration, and the mediation really helps you get those APIs up and running quickly. Then there's the non-functional requirements, and I'll bundle them all together, but the security, the paging, the caching, these are things that the mobile devices need and that you don't necessarily want to build yourself. And then last but not least, there's the lifecycle management. So how do I actually manage the development of the APIs, the templates and processes that I described earlier, and then the app packaging and publication. So how do I certify apps and how do I push those apps into an enterprise or public app store? So the mobile application gateway covers all of those capabilities, and it's described on our websites and within white papers, and we talk about it in our blogs.
That's a great overview. I've got a couple of actual very specific use cases here that come in that we could perhaps look at pretty quickly. So one of them goes to testing. The question says, we have trouble testing mobile apps for integration with our back-end systems and even with integration with security services. Does the mobile application gateway help us there?
Well, testing has two aspects of it. The first one is that you want to do rapid prototyping and stub out your back-end APIs so that you can test your mobile app. So very importantly within the platform, you can actually go and write stubs, create scripts essentially that mimic your back-end APIs, and then layer on all of the security capabilities. So from a mobile app perspective, those APIs behave and look exactly the same as the APIs are going to look once you finish developing them. So that supports the testing of the mobile app independently of the development of the mobile API. So that rapid prototyping, those scripting capabilities, and then the addition of all of the non-functional capabilities on top of that, very, very quickly, right from the get-go, I can create a REST API with a particular structure, layer on OAuth, do some monitoring, do some auditing, add debugging capabilities, and people can start writing apps and testing how the API works very, very quickly without getting an army of developers involved across the organization. So that's the one side of it. The second side of it is, once I publish my API, how do I get app developers to test it before they start writing their APIs? How can I actually see what's happening on the wire? And we have developer test tools, our dev console built into the product that allows developers to play around within the sandbox, to send messages, see what they look like on the wire, see what the responses look like, and basically mimic their application and how their application is going to interact with those APIs. So both from the app's perspective as well as the API's perspective, we provide testing and debugging capabilities for the developers.
Very good. Here's another question, Alistair, that's always part of a mobile application event that we do here at Integration Developer News. It goes to SLA and governance issues. Basically, the question says, where do governance, access security, and SLAs come in the SOA software view of mobile app, ALM?
So there's two parts of this equation as well. There is the publication of APIs, and then there's the consumption of APIs. So when I'm creating an API, what I need to be able to do is I need to be able to define my go-to-market strategy. I need to be able to figure out how I'm going to monetize this API. What that means practically is, how do I create different licenses and plans? So how do I say, for one group of customers, I'm going to give them this much stuff and this much throughput and bandwidth that they're allowed to consume. Then for this customer over here, they're going to pay $5, but they're going to get a little bit extra and a little bit more in terms of quality of service and SLA. So there's the process of defining these licenses and plans that lead to the monetization eventually of your API. So you go and you create licenses and plans, you associate those with APIs, you hook in your individual partners and developers so that they can see the licenses and plans that they're supposed to see, and at the end of the day you report on that, and then you can bill or monetize your API. That's the production lifecycle. And the lifecycle management capabilities I've been discussing is all around, how do I actually define those licenses? How do I define that go-to-market strategy? Who do I get involved from a business analyst perspective, and the marketing guys and the business guys to figure this out? And how do I actually eventually codify that into my marketplace where people can come and consume these APIs? Then from the other side of the equation, the app developers are logging in, your partners are logging in, and they need to see what rates and plans are available to them. And they need to choose a particular rate and plan, and then at some point, some business person on your side is going to say, yes, I approve of that rate and plan. They've sent me their credit card number. I'm ready to start billing them, or whatever the case might be. So there is the production side of the life cycle where you're creating these plans and pushing them into the marketplace or into the developer portal. And then there's the other side of the equation, which is, how do I actually provision these plans to the mobile app developers, to the partners that are using those plans? And the mobile application gateway does both of those. It does both the production pipeline, so to speak, as well as the selling or the go-to-market around the consumption of those licenses and rate plans.
Terrific, terrific. And just one last thing, Alistair. I know we spent a lot of time focusing on the third-party relationship between IT and the outside developer community. Are you finding, as people begin to understand the value of your approach to a mobile application gateway, that their IT is actually using it for enterprise mobile applications, or BYOD?
Absolutely. And it probably accounts for perhaps a third of what we do on a day-to-day basis. Enterprises are realizing a sort of a services layer or an API layer more than they ever would before, ever had before. They're looking at almost providing IT and platform as a service. So we're seeing things that combine private cloud, software-defined networking, creating a set of APIs on top of that, and offering that back into the application developer community. We're seeing horizontal or utility services within IT being created as APIs and exposed to the application development community, the internal application developer community. We're seeing application services and APIs being exposed, both for BYOD as well as for mobile apps that are being built for internal use, as well as for new web applications, HTML5-based applications that are being built that need APIs in the back end. So we're seeing a lot of this, and we're seeing a huge push to, again, shift that center of gravity and make the back-end application service providers to a set of front-end and mobile applications and devices that are being enabled in the organization.
Wow, this has been terrific. Alistair Farquharson, CTO of SOA Software. Very exciting times for mobile application developers and IT operations managers as well to get so much flexibility and control over their mobile priorities and be able to expose that to third-party developers who they may have never even met in person. Really terrific session, and thanks for taking so many questions.
Always a pleasure, Vance.
And as we love to do here, we're going to put a slide up that refreshes a lot of the resources Alistair talked about. We do have a few of these available right here in the breakout room this morning, but as you might expect with such a rich presentation, there are other resources that we can make available to the SOA Software portal. Thanks again, Alistair, and thanks again, everyone.